Whoa, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wheel of Freedom. My name is Phil Marie, and we got Walter J. Kopaczynski, the 15th. Long heritage of polka dancing and kielbasa, chasing women, and all that other good stuff. We're going to start out. Last week we had the NSA guys on, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe,
right,
and Lee Elsey on 94.9. He also had Bill Binney on as a guest.
And these guys are national figures.
Yeah,
They're
world known. Yeah, absolutely, world known for that matter. They go all over the planet.
Yep.
And they're great guys, and I'm honored to have them on our show as often as they come on. And they're like you guys saw last week, they're doing what they can to help people that are being targeted. And it's for the newer viewers, a lot of this stuff's probably going to go right over your head. But as far as being targeted, it's been 8 years. And one of the biggest issues is my house was bugged and my truck was bugged. So my truck can be shut down remotely. And I don't want to get into it because I really got harassed also. But this last week, my truck was shut down remotely, left me on the side of the road. Following that, I just got shocked here, but following that, or during that time frame, a weird phenomenon was going on. Let me just say a government entity was trying to intimidate me, and I have substantial evidence. I'm not going to disclose exactly what it is, but I will tell you guys on the 14th, I will present my case and my evidence thoroughly.
News updates. President Obama visiting New Orleans a decade after Hurricane Katrina visited.
Right, motherfuckers. And you guys have to trust me on this. And you've heard this type of activity going on before from other people that are targeted. I'll just leave it at that. So, but yeah, my truck is now parked. My concern is they shut it off and I lose control of it and run over a child or something. So as far as I'm concerned, these people are it's attempted murder when they're trying to shut my truck off when I'm driving, and if need be, next week we're off, so it's Labor Day, and we got Wally's got some news about next week. What are we showing next week, Wally, on Labor Day? Huh?
I don't know.
Huh, Wally?
Our dancing?
Huh, Wally?
Oh, we're going to repeat the 1950s. Yeah,
We're gonna show,
and Phil's going to show you some dance steps.
yeah, that's right. Next week is Labor Day, so we got it all set up here in the back. That'll play next Monday night. So any of you guys enjoyed it or missed it, it'll be on again.
If you missed this, you got to see it. It's an excellent program.
But Wally don't know how to dance. So, but anyways, that's going to be on the 7th.
I got better moves than Raquel Welch.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably got more moves than Bill Clinton.
Yeah. No.
The definition of is. So the 7th, Labor Day, we got the 50s. The 14th, it's going to be me and Wally in here. And by then, it's 2 weeks. And you guys know, as history knows, when we don't have a show next Monday, I seem to really get targeted hard and picked on because I don't have a platform. But I do have a backup platform. It's called the Lee Elsey Radio Show in the morning between 6 a.m. 10 a.m. and I inform Lee of briefly what's going on, and that I may have to come on the air, and I do respect his parameters of his show, and or I may send him an email, well written, and so anyways, that could be a possibility also, and you guys need to be listening to Lee Elsey in the morning, 6 to 10. Great show Monday through Friday, and our good friend Lori Hopkins Cavanaugh has a show Sundays from 1 to 3. Lori's bringing in some national guests also, great guests.
She has super guests.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So, tonight though is about chemtrails. I promised you guys I would do a show on chemtrails, and the quickest, easiest way to do this is to show videos. And I'll tell you right now, there's one video that's like 9 minutes, and the second video is 17 minutes. It's a woman from California, the head of the agriculture, speaking at the UN. It's a UN webcast. It says it right on it. And you know who sent it to me? Kirk Wiebe. NSA whistleblower. Kirk Wiebe sent me this video. And 17 minutes sounds like a long time, but it's really not. It's very informative. This lady just rambles on and puts all the pieces together, how all the trees, everything are dying, this aluminum being spread, throughout the air. And I said I know a lot. So before we get into, because I do want to run these videos, but Reg, camera 3. All right here you're looking at an article, March 12, 2001, Contrails over northeastern U.S. And in this article, there's a woman, Tiffany Brent. I knew Tiffany. I knew her up in North Conway, New Hampshire. Then there's Will Thomas. He was on with Art Bell and George Norrie there, Coast to Coast AM. Will Thomas. And then they talked about the timeline, how Tiffany Brent, who heard about chemtrails from myself of Conway, New Hampshire. And so this was 2 years ago, prior to March 12th. So it was the end of 1998, early 99. That's a long time ago. So thanks, Reg.
Let people know what contrails are.
Well,
I never knew what they were until you told me.
Well, the contrails are from the Jets. And by the way, I want to dedicate this show to Congressman Joe Courtney. Thank you, Wally. I forgot to dedicate this entire show because the third video is the Iran deal that Courtney's all in favor for. So we and that's 5 minutes. So we have to, there's going to be a lot of videos that are going to be good, but the contrails are what the jets leave in the sky, but they're adding chemicals. I don't need to get into it. These videos self-explain it very much. And when I had asked Joe Courtney for help about being targeted, harassed by the government, I told his office that the only thing I can think of why the government would be after me would be back in 1999, there was a huge debate in the Conway Daily Sun newspaper. And Joe Courtney's response, instead of meeting with me and finding out how I'm being tortured and everything, he sends me a paragraph back explaining how contrails are formed. And all this, one paragraph, all about contrails. So Mr. Joe Courtney, Congressman Joe Courtney, who nobody sees in eastern Connecticut, this show is dedicated to you, my friend. And maybe you can watch something and pay attention. So, Wally, we're 9 minutes in already, so I think we should start with this 9-minute video. You guys, very informative. Hang in there because you will be very, very impressed with the information. I never let you guys down. Reg, can we run that first video, please?
So let's say we were doing geoengineering because we wanted to make the weather a little bit better.
There will be monsoon failures during that period. There'll be huge hurricanes. The global studies indicate there will be some impact on precipitation patterns.
Might involve large-scale regional agricultural disruption lasting a number of years.
And not try to shed the light on this issue, knowing every breath they take is laden with these metals. I have been forced to conclude that there is no greater or no more immediate threat to anything that lives and breathes than the global geoengineering programs, short of nuclear catastrophe.
Geoengineering is defined as the artificial modification of the Earth's climate. Geoengineers are proposing spraying 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum and other substances into our sky for the stated goal of cooling our planet.
So let me distinguish these two different kinds of geoengineering as clearly as I can. So the first one is we call solar radiation management, and that's the idea that you could put mostly reflective particles or other means to make the Earth whiter, effectively to increase the Earth's reflectivity, reducing the amount of heat that's absorbed by the sun, and therefore exerting some overall cooling tendency on the Earth.
I think, though the initial results of climate models indicate that reflection of sunlight away from the Earth can offset most climate change in most places most of the time. But it will damage some places.
We've mostly thought about sulfur, and nevertheless, there might be some good reasons to think about alumina. It turns out, first of all, there's been a lot of work on the environmental consequences of alumina in the stratosphere. There's a bunch of papers going back to the 70s that look at the radiative and ozone-destroying properties of alumina in the stratosphere, and those make you think it might be useful. Do this in just a jet in a very simple way. Make high-quality alumina particles just by spraying alumina vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly, in principle, possible to do that.
Since we released What in the World Are They Spraying, hundreds of people from around the world have began taking rain tests. What they're finding is what many are calling the chemtrail geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium.
We're finding this well-thought footprint internationally, all over the world, wherever they take samples and get a chemical analysis of rain and snow water. This is quite common. Wherever you see the jet chemtrails go over, you're going to get aluminum, barium, strontium coming down on you.
Why would we not believe it's happening when what we see in the sky matches exactly the expressed goal of numerous geoengineering patents, about 160 or more? Why would we not believe this is happening when every element showing up in the rain tests are the primary elements named in those geoengineering patents? Why would we not believe this is happening when we have escalating levels in very short time frames, as short as 5 years? We see rain levels of aluminum, for example, escalating as much as 50,000%. California air quality studies do not show these metals migrating from China, and it's of recent origin. So, this bombardment of heavy metals that's raining down on us is coming from somewhere. Why would we not believe geoengineering is occurring when the weather patterns are so altered here in exactly the manner stated by geoengineers and reports on the consequences for geoengineering, which are diminished rainfall, which are increased ozone destruction? We have a massive ozone hole in the northern hemisphere now.
Should aluminum be in the soil in the rain? And yes, it should be in the soil. It's naturally there, always was there. And should it be in the rain? Well, absolutely not. But the standard reply has been, your samples are contaminated. But since we are getting samples now that show zero aluminum, and we're getting lots of barium and strontium and zero aluminum, so that just proves that if there was dirt in our samples of some sort, dust blown up from the ground, we should get some aluminum in some detectable quantity.
The primary ingredients in geoengineering are specifically the oxides of metals, including aluminum oxide. This is devastating to plants, totally devastating. The trees are dying. Why? Approximately 2 years ago, I rode in the back, and you can ride in the back of my place for miles. You can go all the way through the woods, creeks and everything, and it was, I say was, gorgeous. And the day before yesterday, I took a ride, and I rode in the back, and what I found was total devastation.
As I pointed out before, Michael, we're seeing as in this example here, very hardy native plants completely flash out dead. That looks like it's been hit with some kind of a chemical. And we've only seen this in the last couple of years. And there's another one there, back over there. We're seeing mature madrone trees, which are 70, 80 feet high, flash out dead, just like this. USDA refuses to investigate it.
The pH typically around here should be about 5.6. Well, since the contrailing got heavy, I watched the pH here in these forests, well, go up, I guess would be the word. From 5.6, it went about 20 times more alkaline.
Very big red flag of fallout from these materials are pH changes to the forest floor. We have very extensive studies from the U.S. Department of Agriculture on the soils in our region, and those soils have changed in 5 to 6 years. The pHs have changed in this area as much as 10 to 12 times toward alkaline in 5 to 6 years. I've personally been in the forest testing with USDA soil scientists who just scratch their heads and seem to have no explanation for incredibly profound changes in pH, which is affecting the ecosystem here tremendously.
Aluminum buffer action, aluminum hydroxide is what we think it is, plus the barium carbonate, strontium titanate, strontium oxides, barium oxides, probably some aluminum oxides in there, that this has apparently driven our acid soils about 20 times more alkaline to about 6.8.
There are simply too many dots here that connect. Our skies are almost never blue anymore. That is a named consequence of geoengineering. The amount of lost sunshine hitting the planet right now is beyond belief. If people look up the term global dimming, they will see that fully 20% of the sun's rays that reached the planet several decades ago are no longer reaching the planet. I mean, that's a profound change that few people even know is occurring. And you have very visible occurrences in the sky from the aircraft, a very visible sun-blocking, expanding, dingy trails that are exactly what geoengineering patents describe.
Heavy aluminum, I'm talking like in the 40s and 50s up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That's still common. Barium, strontium to somewhere 40 or 50 to, again, about 2,000 or 3,000. Same for both barium and strontium.
Where is this mountain of metal coming from? Why is asthma, ADD, Alzheimer's, autism, all elements related in many studies to aluminum or particulate inhalation? Why are these ailments going off the charts with no apparent explanation? Why has respiratory mortality in the continental United States gone from 8th on the list to 3rd in 6 years? And no one seems to ask any questions. Why every other person has asthma now? Why every other commercial on TV is an allergy medication? And again, when David Keith, the world's most recognized geoengineer, was asked on the record, had there been any studies done as to the consequences of dumping 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere, his answer was patently no.
Northern California, we've got a bit of an unusual situation. Now, this first portion of the radar cycle, fairly bland and typical, but then you see these bands of very distinct cloud cover moving into the region. That is not rain, that is not snow, believe it or not. Military aircraft flying through the region is dropping chaff. Small bits of aluminum, sometimes it's made of plastic or even metallicized paper products, but it's used as an anti-radar issue, and obviously they're up there practicing. Now, they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is. 50 in...
I guarantee you that weatherman isn't doing weather anymore.
Yeah.
Wally, what do you got for a question?
I don't understand. This is all new to me. You know?
Well, it's been going on since 1997, 98. So we're
but the EPA is not a worthwhile organization.
Not
to me.
No.
Because they've been lying to the American people for years and years.
And they're saying the EPA won't do anything. They said that. It's the agriculture people that are very interested in this.
Okay.
And
because they grow
all
crops.
The plants are dying.
Yeah.
Now, California on the West Coast is burning. All the trees are dead. Everything's burning. It's dried out, burning. This is where all this is coming from. All these video that we just saw. In the next video, the UN video, the woman's from California, and she explains how the trees are absorbing the aluminum into the roots, and then it blocks the water from coming in, and then the trees are all dying. Therefore, forest fires. Where's our president? He's up in Alaska. Why is he in Alaska? Alaska's drying out. Why are they drying out? Why is there forest fires in Alaska? I don't know, but, you know. So there's always been plenty on the other side, Wally. Even Joe Courtney sent me a paragraph. It's just steam, and then they want to call you a bunch of lunatics. That's why I never touched this subject for 3 years. I told you this.
Yeah.
And because it's so easy to dismiss and say, hey, a bunch of kooks, but nobody will take the time and watch. For the people that don't know, you know, then they're going to wonder what it is. But for the people that have heard of it, and a lot of the viewers probably have heard of that term, the chemtrails or the contrails. So I got to watch the time. We have a 17-minute from the UN video. This woman's very informative, Wally. So maybe after listening to this woman, you might learn that much more and get a good grip. And Reg, can we run that second video, please?
Thank you very much. I'm Richard Jordan, chairman of the conference. I'm going to just introduce Khalid Dawood, who will introduce the speakers. So Khalid, thank you very much for moderating this session, and I turn it over to you, and I will return in about 3 minutes.
So our next speaker is Dr. Rosalind Peterson. She's the California president and co-founder of the Agriculture Defense Coalition, formed in 2006 to protect agriculture crop production from uncontrolled experimental weather modification programs. A very interesting topic, you know, for a non-specialized person like myself. But also very interesting in her CV that we have with you is also her extensive efforts to protect drinking water supplies from toxic chemical contamination in Martinez, California. That's a very interesting topic, of course, and I was actually wondering myself whether you can tackle whether the same experiments that you're holding in California could be extended to other world countries, particularly poor and developed countries like where we come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman. It is a pleasure to be here to speak with all of you today. One of the things that I would like to say is that we are in a global drumbeat right at the moment talking about climate change and global warming. One of the things that is affected by climate change is agriculture. But some of what we are seeing is man-made, but man-made in a different way than you may guess. Weather modification programs, experimental ones done by private companies, done by the United States government, done by states across the United States are underway. There's more than 50 of them in operation across the United States. All of these impact agriculture because they change the microclimates needed for agriculture to survive. None of these programs that I know of today, and this is all public record, are available at any time with oversight, agricultural oversight or public oversight. These programs impact agriculture, and there are programs around the world, international corporations are modifying our weather all the time, and they're modifying it in ways that cover thousands and thousands of square miles. Most of it is chemically altered, so that what happens is that we are putting chemicals, ground-based chemicals that are shot into the air, or chemicals coming from airplanes that change and modify our weather. So one of the things that I'm concerned about and that we need to address in the future is how these programs are impacting microclimates needed for our crops to survive and needed for pollination. If we change the growing season, the pollinators may not survive, and also our crops, our flowers, and our tree crops may not get the pollination needed. So one of my areas is looking at this situation to see if we can begin to put under control experimental and other types of weather modification programs. The other issue is that a lot of times we're talking about mitigation for climate change. It's rather an undefined term at this period of time. And so what happens is that many times we're talking about artificially putting chemicals like sulfur, or particulates into the atmosphere in what they call geoengineering schemes to reduce and help the planet, supposedly, but help the planet to not go through such a tremendous global climate change and to mitigate global warming. However, the incidence of putting chemicals into our atmosphere is going to change and impact agricultural crop production. And if you take and you put up into our skies chemicals to reduce the amount of sunlight reaching the earth, you are going to begin to reduce crop production. Studies at the University of Illinois on corn crop production show reductions. Without the process of photosynthesis, whereby plants from direct sunlight gain the energy to grow, to produce crops, we are going to find ourselves, if we mitigate in that direction, impacting the crop production not only here in the United States, but worldwide. One of the things that is impacting crop production right now in the United States and reducing photosynthesis and also impacting the ability of solar power panels to generate the type of power that they should is persistent jet contrails. NASA talks about persistent jet contrails as exacerbating global warming because they trap warmth in the atmosphere when they produce cirrus and man-made clouds. NASA also talks about that these aircraft leaving persistent contrails are changing our climate. And when they change our climate to the degree that one jet can leave a persistent jet contrail which will spread across our skies from what this picture up here on my left on the screen looks like, which is a trail left by a jet, that trail can expand to 4,000 kilometers and last for 20 hours. This was unheard of in the early 60s and the 70s, and it wasn't until the late 1980s that there was a change and we started to have persistent jet contrails that persist. NASA studies show that part of our global warming problem could be attributed to these types of contrails and the jets that leave them. So one of the issues as we go through is, how do you like your skies, natural or man-made? And right now we are making man-made clouds, and this is trapping warmth in our atmosphere. The climate change that is produced by these jets, not all jets, mostly some non-commercial, but what happens to our skies is that we start to see the changes. The man-made clouds do trap the warmth, and they increase the humidity. This allows for pests to proliferate, diseases, molds, mildews, funguses, and viruses. This is a man-made cloud, ladies and gentlemen, and these pictures I took myself over Northern California, and this is a burst. This is where a jet left a huge plume, and then this turned in at the end of it to a burst, and this is not normal, never seen before in our county historically, and I was born and raised there. This is another picture showing the jet trail just before the burst. This is our skies, and I want you to know that what you're seeing now, a lot of times many scientists know, especially at NASA and in other areas, that the skies that we're seeing are not normal cloud formations. These are man-made. And what happens as we reduce the amount of sunlight in a form of global dimming, we reduce the solar power with these type of clouds, and we reduce photosynthesis, which is going to impact agriculture. The pictures look odd. The formations don't look like normal clouds that people have seen before historically. This is another type of man-made cloud, and what we have done and what you're seeing here is we have the photographs from the times that the jet leaves the first trail as a thin, spindly trail to where they form into these different types of cloud formations. All of you can start looking up and seeing this. What happens is that there are experiments, and there's a color, you can see some color in this photograph. And part of what we're doing also is we're sending up canisters. The United States government, NASA, the U.S. Air Force, is sending up canisters into the atmosphere filled with chemicals to modify and experiment with our ionosphere. And when we modify and experiment with our ionosphere up here, we create experiments which they can see through these persistent jet contrails as they stay in the sky for long periods of time, and they can watch the experiments. The type of chemicals they are using are aluminum, barium, strontium, and these canisters are sent up on rockets, and what they do is they superheat the canisters to create experiments in our atmosphere. The experiments can give you colorful auroras, which they talk about as being wonderful. Many times people think that the auroras in Alaska and the ones we see are normal, but there's beginning to be more and more seen across the United States and elsewhere where aluminum, trimethyl aluminum experiments to make clouds are beginning to impact us. The reason I am concerned for agriculture is that none of these experiments have any public oversight nor agricultural oversight. Our drinking water is impacted because the chemicals are now beginning to show up in our drinking water. In California, the State Department of Health drinking water tests were examined between 1970 and this year, and we found unusual spiking in barium, aluminum, strontium, magnesium, calcium, manganese, and all of these spiked at the same time in various drinking water supplies across the state of California and also in Arizona. So what's happening with these atmospheric tests is that aluminum, as one example, gets into, with increased pollution and acid rain, gets into the root systems of our crop trees and our trees, and it looks like the trees are dying of drought. But they're not. What happens is that the root systems can no longer absorb the water and the nutrients needed to survive. Many of our forests in Redding, California and other areas are dying. The oak trees, the redwood trees, the Douglas fir across the United States, many areas. We believe that these trees are impacted because they cannot absorb enough water because aluminum is going into their root systems. Also, molds, mildew, and fungus from warmer temperatures produced by persistent jet contrails are also allowing pests and molds to proliferate, also impacting tree health and crop health. The skies that you see up here, it is important to note, have a white haze to them. When crossing the United States 2 days ago, we saw this man-made produced haze all the way across the United States. There were a few real clouds. We saw the persistent jet contrails from the jet windows, and the skies in the white haze looked a lot like this. So one of the things that we need to really look at is that jet fuel emissions contaminate our air, much as automobile exhaust. They know from scientific studies back in the 1970s that they deplete beneficial ozone in the atmosphere by releasing nitric acid. So one of the things that we need to look at is the impact of just jet fuel and just the emissions from jets as well. I want to go on and talk briefly about a couple of issues here that I think are important for everyone to realize. If we don't look at the problems that we are creating, the atmospheric testing programs, in other words, the jet contrails that are warming our climate, and we say to ourselves, we want to geoengineer something else. We want to add more particulates to help global warming or to stop climate change. What we're going to have is we're going to have a pea soup up there of chemicals which are going to be detrimental to our health. It is much better to take the EPA model of the 1970s, where the Environmental Protection Agency was designed to put in regulations to reduce the pollution at its source, to reduce and put caps on how much pollution corporations, cars, automobiles were putting into the atmosphere. One of the things that we're talking about as mitigation is to go into geoengineering plans which add more chemicals to our atmosphere, which are going to get into our drinking water supplies, which are going to get into our soils, which are going to impact our trees. Our trees across the United States, many of them, in many areas, especially Mendocino, Lake, and Sonoma County, are dying. They are not healthy as they used to be. And this problem, having traveled across the United States into some other areas, seeing the pictures coming in from across the United States and other countries, we're finding that there's beginning to be an impact from all of these programs and all the chemicals in our skies. And so one of the things we need to think about and work for is reducing pollution. Alan Buckman from the California State Department in Fish and Game talked about microbes, and they're important to the environment. We have at our disposal already some technologies and already the wherewithal to begin to make the planet more healthy and to put it into a different perspective. But if we go to the geoengineering schemes that are waiting in the wings, thousands of them, to put the particulates up and sulfur, then we are going to be in trouble with agriculture across the United States and around the world. It is time that we look at some different solutions that are already here, and it's time that we look at what's happening in our skies and say we don't need to add any more chemicals, we are doing enough. And what these experiments in our skies are doing with atmospheric heating and testing, we don't know, but the chemicals are showing up in our drinking water. So in closing, I would like to say to all of you and to encourage you to know that just what I showed you today is beginning to impact crop production in the United States. And we're seeing higher UV radiation that is burning the tips of our trees and our plants. We see the molds and mildews growing here, and we see all of this, and we hope that all of you will consider before you think of mitigation and just go forward with some of the plans that are being sold to you as almost a cap-and-trade situation, where a corporation like Planktos decides to put iron dust into the Galapagos Islands area. This is a proposal, may have already started, and to create algae blooms. And yes, they're saying, yes, we're going to help the environment because we're going to create these algae blooms for more oxygen. But what happens is it's going to impact the marine life in those areas. As a geoengineering plan, it is going to be sold, the credits for this, the supposed benefits, is to be sold as credits to people who want to pollute more. And here's the really awful twist to this, in my opinion, is if we sell pollution credits to polluters to ask them so that they can pollute more, we're only going to add more to our climate change and to our global warming processes. We have to say, no, we don't want money market schemes that are going to go into the ocean and change something possibly to the detriment of our oceans or our air, in order to sell credits to someone who wants to pollute more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a consideration for all of you when you start to talk about caps and trades, when you start to talk about geoengineering plans, because we don't need a money market scheme. We need to have and use the microbes available to us, the science available to us to reduce the pollution that we're putting into the atmosphere, and we need a new direction, and I think that this might be a good one. So I hope that all of you will consider what I have to say today, and I want to thank you once again for listening to what I had to say.
Thank you. So, there you go. That was sent from Kirk Wiebe, NSA whistleblower, and I never saw a video like that at the UN, Wally, and for years that subject was, I mean, they've had, the Air Force wants to control the weather by 2025. They had all this stuff out in the late 90s, all these different programs, and as it was the UN treaty back in, 1977, I was telling you, they passed a treaty that no country can use weather modification against another country as a form of war. So it's been ongoing for a long time, and like I told you earlier off the air, that GE themselves were cloud seeding to get rid of the pollution of one of their coal plants, whatever they had up in upstate New York, Schenectady or whatever it was, and that was, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. I don't remember when that was, but so it's been going on for a while. And China, when they had the Olympics, it was in the news that they were cloud seeding, making it rain, clearing the atmosphere. So, anyways. All right, so now we're running out of time. We have another video that I'd like to dedicate to Joe Courtney also, because he signed the Iranian deal, Wally. And this video was sent to me by a lovely lady, and you may or may not know her, but anyway, she sent it, as a matter of fact, late this afternoon. So I think to keep things going, we should probably run that last video, and it's 5 minutes, and it's a real good video about the Iran nuclear deal. Is it a good deal or a bad deal? So, well explained, and it's from a very good source.
We say that evil is dark, but this metaphor is imprecise. Evil is actually intensely bright. So painfully bright that people look away from it. Many even deny its existence. Why? Because once people acknowledge evil's existence, they know they have to confront it. And most people prefer not to confront evil. That is what led to World War II and the death of 55 million people. Many in the West denied the darkness of Nazism. They looked the other way when that evil could have been stopped, and then appeased it as it became stronger. We are reliving 1938, the year that democratic Western nations assured a police state, the Nazi regime, that they would do nothing to prevent its expansion. That year, the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, went to Munich to negotiate with Adolf Hitler. He left believing Hitler's promises of peace in exchange for Germany being allowed to annex large parts of Czechoslovakia. Upon returning to England, Chamberlain announced, "Peace for our time." The 2015 agreement between America, Europe, Russia, China, and Iran mirrors 1938. The Nazi regime was a police state. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a police state. The Nazis' greatest aim was to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Iran's greatest aim is to exterminate the Jewish state. The West dismissed Hitler as the Jews' problem. The West dismisses Iran as Israel's problem. Nazi Germany hated the West and its freedoms. The Islamic Republic of Iran hates the West and its freedoms. Germany sought to dominate Europe. Iran seeks to dominate the Middle East and the Muslim world. And just as Britain and France appeased Nazi Germany, the same two countries, along with the United States, have chosen to appease Iran. In fact, there's considerably less defense for the Iran agreement, which awards Iran $150 billion in currently frozen assets and the right to keep its nuclear program, than there was for the Munich Agreement. Prior to 1938, Hitler had not publicly proclaimed his aim to annihilate Europe's Jews. Yet Iran has been proclaiming its intention to annihilate the Jewish state for decades. There were no massive death to America demonstrations in Germany, as there regularly are in Iran. In 1938, Germany had not been responsible for terror around the world, as Iran is now. Nor was Germany responsible for the death of more than 1,000 Americans, as Iran has been in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Lebanon. The Neville Chamberlains of 2015 defend the agreement with Iran on two grounds: that the only alternative is war, and that this agreement has the capacity to bring Iran into the, quote, community of nations. The war argument is a falsehood for three reasons. First, the alternative to this agreement was continuing and tightening the sanctions that were weakening the Iranian regime and greatly diminishing its ability to fund terror groups around the world. Second, because the agreement so strengthens Iran, it makes war far more likely. When evil expansionist regimes get richer, they don't spend their wealth on building new hospitals. They expand. Third, Iran has been at war with America for decades. And whoever believes that the agreement will bring Iran into the, quote, community of nations betrays a breathtaking ignorance of the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime is composed of religious fanatics who are morally indistinguishable from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, and all the other mass-murdering Islamist movements. The Iranian regime has executed more people than any country except China and killed more than 6,000 Iranians just for being homosexual. A woman in Iran is not allowed to leave the country without the permission of her husband. The Iranian regime repeatedly calls for the extermination of Israel. No other country in the world is committed to annihilating another country. Iran is already the world's greatest funder of terror organizations. Imagine what it will do with another $150 billion. Imagine what it will do with the removal of the current weapons and missile embargo. Imagine what it will do with its intact nuclear infrastructure. This deal allows all three. Very few people have a chance to do something about the greatest evil of their time. When it votes on this agreement, the American Congress has that chance. I'm Dennis Prager.
That's scary.
All right, we're back.
As far as that law, our government's going to pass it. Obama's pushing like mad, and I think the Republicans are going to cave in too. Enough of Republicans are going to cave in for that. And that's scary. That's scary.
Now, I heard, I think it was either Michael Savage or Glenn Beck, they were playing John Kerry, was threatening our country and saying if we don't, or threatening Congress, if we don't pass this law, whatever, this deal, we're going to lose our leadership, financial leadership of the world, and this and that. He went on and on. It was really creepy. Yeah. In other words, that he's threatening that our currency is gonna, or they're gonna collapse.
It's going to destroy our economy. It's very scary. And
well, no matter what, Israel has to defend themselves. So if there's a nuclear program, you know they're gonna take it out one way or another.
But this bothers me because from the day one, the day he first became president of the United States, he start pushing executive orders to help Iran. He started from day one. Look it up, people. Look it up.
Who's the main woman in our government? Who's the number one? Valerie Jarrett.
Valerie Jarrett. And she's a Muslim also.
She's from Iran.
Yeah.
She's an Iranian.
And John Kerry's daughter is married to a Muslim, too.
Sure.
Are all Muslims bad? Of course not. And nobody has ever said that I know of.
Oh.
But they keep using that. Well, not all Muslims are terrorists. Of course they're not. But many of them are.
Sure.
You know, because there's over 1 billion Muslims in this world. And, 1% of 1 billion is how much,
It's crazy. Two minutes left. So next week, a minute left. Next week's a Labor Day, right? So I wish everyone a happy, safe Labor Day. And we're going to show the 50s. You can see some dance moves. It was a fun show. And then the following week, the 14th, me and Wally will be in here. And I'm going to most likely have this situation with my truck and this so-called, this for now call it government entity, which is a wide variety, that was harassing me. And I do have substantial evidence with that, which is really, really bizarre. So we'll be talking about that on the 14th, and then again on the 21st. Everybody, we're fading out. I want to wish all the viewers, God bless all the viewers. God bless America. And next week, Labor Day, have a great Labor Day. Enjoy the 1950s fun show we did. And anything that you ever missed, you can look up on YouTube. Just type in Wheel of Freedom at YouTube. And you'll get our YouTube channel. So that's it, everyone. Good night and God bless.
Good night.